Hello and welcome to today's edition of Pegasus Test. On today's edition, we're covering the April 2025 edition of the Fairfax Rod & Gun Club's 2-Gun Action Challenge match. And I felt I'd give a little precursor to what's going on before we get into the stages, just so you understand. I chose this match to test out a Tavor I recently acquired and a Beretta M9A4. I just mounted an optic on it, and it was my first chance using it other than zeroing it, and as you'll see as I go along, that proved to be a challenge. Also, I was doing a compare and contrast with the Tavor because when I got it and mounted the optic on it just a week prior, I noticed that the trigger pull was, shall we say, horrendous. Matter of fact, you could say it's like a heavy double action crappy revolver trigger, but that would be a hell of an insult to double action heavy revolver triggers. So I've already ordered a replacement, and I just want to try it out in a match and see what happens with the crappy rifle before the upgrade, so I have something to compare it to when I use it in a match after the upgrade. Alright, even though this is stage 1, this was actually our third stage of the day, and this was called Pistol Hustle. So you had to carry this big heavy bag of brass and make about an 85-yard dash with your rifle slung. In my case, in an armored TST, you were running with all your gear. And once you get up to that first first pistol position, you loaded and drew your pistol, and at that double spinner, you had to get one hit on each plate, total 4 hits. And as you see me starting to struggle with the sight here, turns out over on the other bay where we were at, lots of shadows from the trees, and the brightness setting I picked was just perfect. And over here in the sun brightness, it was just so low I didn't see it. I had to really crank it up, and that really threw me off. But recovered fairly quickly, even though I found out the zero was a bit off. Seems my windage was okay, but my elevation was way off. Luckily here, with some guidance from the RO, I'm able to figure out where I'm hitting.
Where am I hitting?
Really low. Because of that, I can adjust. Eventually, I'll get the head shot, and you can see how low, because I'm aiming at the head and hitting the center. But when I get that head, figured it out, okay, readjust, put my aiming, boom, resets. So you have to do a mandatory reload here. I've got so much gear on that I can't find the dump pouch because I'm actually wearing 2 war belts. We'll go into that another time. And then back over to the final position where you had to get 4 hits again, and you had the option of going to spin the spinner for a 60-second bonus. I decided not to risk it. Alright, now we're at stage 2, which was our 4th stage of the day. This one started out with a rifle, and you had to brace against this tire. And you had to engage the double spinner. You didn't have to spin it. You had to get 8 hits non-consecutively. And then once you did that, you dropped your mag and took a high-value shot. And then you had to take your tire with you on up to the next position, which you would re-engage the spinner targets with only 4 hits from the pistol, but you did not have to spin it. And here's where it all goes wrong. And I've got no excuse because I RO'd this stage and I did it for everybody, but I threw the tire down to get my pistol all out before I got down, loaded it up here, and just proceeded to start shooting instead of kneeling and bracing off the tire, which was specifically stated in the stage brief. Although shot it well, although I knew by now that my zero was way off with the pistol. And over here, taking the procedural, I do my best to get a good score. And unfortunately, that procedural bites me in the butt, and I came in dead last in my division on this stage and kind of deserved it because that 60-second penalty essentially doubled my score. Alright, now stage 3 here was actually the first stage of the day for me, and this is the Sinistral spinner test, and you basically here you're engaging a spinner that's probably a little over 100 meters away, and you get 1 magazine to spin it. Then you have to drop the magazine, take a high value shot, then dash forward to up to that orange coin you can see there, and spin that spinner again. This stage ate a lot of people's lunch, and when the match director warns you about that before the match starts, you know you're in trouble. For the guys who brought the 308s, not very much trouble. Of the 223s, I do okay here. I almost get it, but you know, had that thing moving pretty good. But in the end, 30 rounds wasn't enough to get it over. I was really worried about this stage because the Tavor has the stock trigger in it, and it's atrocious. And when I say it's atrocious, it's like a really bad double-action revolver trigger, except that would be an insulting thing to say to bad double-action revolvers. Here, going for the high-value shot, put the mag in, got an extra round in, drop that mag, pop the shot, got it, and then dash down range. I gotta admit, this 100 yards seemed like incredibly a lot longer than 100 yards because yesterday I had done the remote military march, 25 kilometers, and then I'd made this dash with every shooter prior to me shooting this stage, and yeah, it seemed like more like 1,000 yards than it did 100. Now when I get up here, problems start with the pistol. Pulled it out of the holster, and you notice there's no light on it. The light decided to stay in the holster, and yeah, I am not hitting, and I realized that somehow the sight's gotten off. Very frustrating. Stage 4, our second stage of the day. And when before the match starts, the match director warns you about this stage with an apology that he made it too hard. You know you're in for a challenge. And this was challenging. You ran the first 6 slots on the VTAC, and you were hitting a target just over 200 meters away. And you got one hit, moved to the next port. Very simple. Once you'd shot the 6 ports, you would then take a high-value target at that same one you'd been aiming at through the ports, which is, you know, drop the mag and then take the final shot with the round in the gun. Then you would grab this artillery charge container. It's filled full of brass, and then you would run around to a designated spot marked by a cone that you can see up ahead there, and run back, and then recreate the 6 engagements you just did. And you all did this all in 120 seconds. This turned out to be something that ate a lot of people's lunch. It was actually a very good skill drill. Usually when you run a VTAC, you don't run it at distance like that. It was interesting running it with the Tavor with the horrible trigger. It was not good, but on the other hand, the light handiness of the rifle to be able to get in these unusual positions that you see here really helped. This slot was the toughest one. My helmet was actually in the way, as you see there. I missed pretty wildly, so I do a pretty radical change in position that helps out. I'm able to stabilize my left hand against the ground, and with the bolt up into my shoulder and the handguard resting in the slot, it was actually pretty stable shooting position. To take the high value, you could do it from any position on the barricade, so I went for a nice easy kneeling position. Made sure I took my time to get it since it was a high value shot, not worth us taking a 60-second penalty. The charge container had a lot of brass in it, but it sloshed around a little bit, so that made for a challenge. And it's real bittersweet here to have the buzzer goes off just as I get back to the barricade. All right, time for after-action review and lessons learned. Main lesson learned here was you press on through. I mentioned earlier I was wearing 2 war belts. Yeah, I got a little confused that morning. The day before I had done the remote military march, and I did it in full fighting kit, as you see here. And my intention was to shoot the match in armored. And got to give my thanks to the match director for allowing me to go ahead, even though, as you can see, I forgot my armor. So I brought my belt set up for my handgun based on armor, and then I had this rig over it. So I had 2 belts on, which was mildly discomforting, but not too much of a hindrance, and I just fought through it. Same with the trigger on the Tavor. The thing is absolutely horrible, even worse than an AUG trigger. But it really didn't mess me up that much. And on other matches I have said, wow, the trigger really made things difficult. Not this time. For as bad as it was, I didn't really feel that it hindered me that much. I am left with a bit of a conundrum because at the same time I mounted the sight to the Tavor and zeroed it, I mounted the sight and zeroed it to the Beretta A4. And somehow the elevation has gotten way, way off. I was able to compensate it as I got through the stages and learned more and more how far off it was. But man, that really worked against me in this match, and I got to find out why it went so wrong, because I know it was so good a week earlier. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Pegasus Test. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Tune in for future match videos.